Wavestate is not like any other keyboard. This is a very interesting engine. I'm talking about the mod knobs on Wavestate. This is Microsoft Windows. I'm launching Wavestate Editor Librarian. The mod knobs are these knobs at the top in the librarian. The white knobs on the hardware. Novation Components. I'm in the template editor. I'm grabbing my template in Bank 2 mod knobs. So here in the Wavestate editor are the mod knobs, 8 of them. Here in my template are the same thing. But what are they? What are the Wavestate mod knobs? It's not obvious or straightforward. The best way to look at them is a user interface to a patch or preset. In Wavestate terminology, the performance. The performance contains the layers. In the layers are mods that can attach to these knobs. So I'm showing the manual, the user manual. It says they will do different things depending on the specific sound. This is what they're talking about in words that they should have made more clear. What they mean is these knobs can be accessed from inside the preset so that the user turns the knob, it does something programmed in the preset. So they have names, and it says here the names are suggestions. The master timing, sequence, frequency, whatever. These knobs can be anything. But it's the method Korg created for you, the player, to trigger stuff inside a patch, but you can use these yourself by creating your own attachments to these knobs. It's not very obvious what these are even. So here we have pictures of the mod knobs up here. Master timing, sample, pitch. The names are suggestions. These knobs can be anything. The patch designer can attach a knob to one of these, a filter, or any one of these other things, most of them. On the hardware, you have 8 physical dials, but there's 5 sets of these. There's one for each layer. This is the layer set, layer A. I'm in A, layer A, 8 knobs. If I go to B, layer B, 8 knobs. Each layer, layer C, they have their own knobs. And then there's a performance set. The performance is the whole show, this patch. The layers, or the 4 layers that might be running all at the same time. Here on this template, I've got the same ones. Now, I wanted to reduce the number of MIDI codes used by these. And I'm able to do that because I made channel layer A MIDI channel 2. By default, this keyboard, the MIDI keyboard on Wavestate, is channel 1. The default MIDI channel on the keyboard is 1. I made it 2, layer B 3, layer C 4, layer D, 5. As they ship this thing, they have a different MIDI code for all 5 sets of these. That's 40 codes. Because I've split these off into channels, I've reduced those 40 codes into 8 codes. This is channel 2. I have a B template that makes it channel 3, a C template, channel 4, a D template, channel 5. So when I set up a template in Novation Components, I'm setting a CC code here. Now, for most of them, like say I'm going to modulate or control this octave. Most of the time, I have to go here and create the mods octave. I turn on a CC plus minus and pick a code. I set this intensity up. For most of them, I have to do this. I have to click on the entity, this dial, go up here, create a CC code, tying it to a CC code. In the case of these mod knobs, it's different. These are configured in the hardware. If you go into the utility menu and scroll through what's there, you find the MIDI CC code configuration for these. These are a set number in the hardware. There's a section in the user manual, MIDI CC assign, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. The only things that are configured in here are mod knobs plus scale. 8 times 5, 40 codes. There's not that many MIDI codes. A lot of them are reserved, or some of them are reserved. I wanted to free up more so I can control effects and stuff. And I'm splitting these A, B, C, D into different channels. So I've made these all the same. Here they are all different numbers. In my hardware, when I look at this, they all 5 of them are set to the same code. I had to study documents like this to understand the standard codes. Which codes can I not use because they're already in use? For example, code 1 is modulation wheel. That wheel is on Wavestate, and it is code 1. Now, most of these aren't applicable to what I'm doing, but down here, you've got mute all sound. This is incredibly important. I think this is the most important MIDI code in the world. In Wavestate, you can get 4 layers playing at the same time. They're sequences. They're all 4 running. They all 4 have a level setting. The program that they're running in also has a level setting. You've got level settings on a mixer interface. It's easy to get confused and have some loud sound running. So you need panic buttons. You need mutes. I set this up to be like a mixer. I wish everything was kind of like a mixer. Every mixer has a mute. I set up 4 mutes. Mutes for the layers, and I set up a mute for the program. You get into a situation where you made a mistake and some dial was up and you're blasting this sound. You need a panic switch. It's going to happen. It's guaranteed. It's going to happen. MIDI mapping for Wavestate is a tad more complicated than usual because of the complexity of this device. So I created a spreadsheet. I used color codes. So these blue are standard MIDI, like expression pedals and so on. Some of them were Korg defined, like the vector joystick. I put the reverb here at the top. I've got the EQ here. This is the master EQ. These are all effects. Every effect parameter on all 4 layers has unique codes. So instead of a unique code for mod knobs, I have unique codes for effects. The mod knobs are split off into channels, so I only needed 8 codes. Here they are. Depending on what channel you're in, you're using the same codes over and over, 112 to 119. So I recommend, if you're going to do something like this, use a spreadsheet. It makes it a lot more easy to manage. Keep the spreadsheet up to date. You're probably going to end up shifting codes around at some point. I've been writing software for quite some time, since I was 12. This is an impressive piece of software because, let's go to the mod knobs. If you do this here with the GUI, you are tweaking that knob on the hardware. Conversely, if you're turning that master knob on the hardware, this will move here. And with my template on Novation on the keyboard, I do exactly the same thing. I'm moving it. Now, if you look around here, you see these orange things. If I click on this orange thing, that's a mod. So this program level pan is being modulated by an oscillator. Here's another one here. Tune. See the orange? It's an oscillator, pitch envelope. If I create a mod, so I click on resonance, I go to mods here, it automatically turned to resonance. I turn on a CC plus minus, I pick a code. I set the intensity up. I create a template to control this. It's an orange dot here indicating this is a mod. When I turn that dial on my Novation keyboard, that orange dot will move here. That's how I test them. I go through them one by one, I test them. So I'm moving these knobs. This has never been more applicable than today, where everything looks like this. Everything is a picture of stuff. It's not the physical dials. Here's a master EQ. The graphical parts are useful with the mouse. These, I would rather use physical dials to turn these kind of things. It's so much better, especially with stuff like reverb and delay. You want to tweak it just a little bit to see what happens. You're doing it in real time. I guess probably there's experts who just do this all the time. They're used to it. This is a third window into Wavestate from the outside. But this MIDI controller can take control of plugins. It can take control of reverb. If I get a Strymon reverb with a MIDI port, I can control it in the exact same way as this. Literally, I'll control the wet and dry. I'll control the size of the reverb with these same dials, different MIDI channel. So back to this template. The mod knobs are set to the codes that I've picked, 112 through 119. Instead of having unique codes for 5 sets of these, I've split them into channels. So for the mod knobs, I don't need to do anything in here. They will just work. I had to go to the hardware though and configure these codes in the hardware. This part of my series is just about these mod knobs. These knobs here, there's one for each layer, there's one for performance. These are my templates for the mod knobs. I'm done. All I'm doing is entering these codes and configuring the matching numbers in the hardware. In the next part of this series, I'm going to talk about how I map to things like this, where I have to go into the mods and set the codes. This is just the mod knobs. And again, the mod knobs can be anything. These names are suggestions by Korg. These knobs are a user interface to the patch. The patch designer can go in here and pick something, add a mod, and they're mapping to this knob that exists both in software, like here, or the plugin. It exists as physical knobs on the hardware, and I'm replicating it with more physical knobs on this Novation keyboard. So think deeply on this. I have 3 of everything. I have hardware Wavestate with physical dials. I have a Novation keyboard mapped with more physical dials. I have a software version with pictures of the dials. To grip the power of what I'm doing, you get rid of the computer. Once I've mapped this, there is no computer. This keyboard is wired into the other keyboard. The computer is not required. The sounds are in the hardware keyboard. The performances, the patches, they're in the keyboard. The software, so go open it again. You could use this for development of your patch, and then performing, it's gone. This is analog audio out on Wavestate. Now go back to this again. Let's say you don't have the hardware. Well, I do. I have the dials. So this can be a plug-in. You don't have the hardware. This is power. Wavestate is not like any other keyboard. This is a very interesting engine. I'm talking about the mod knobs on Wavestate.